Synopsis *: Mira Solano, a gifted parrot trainer with a troubled past, is hired to rehabilitate a rare mute macaw at the lavish Cavendish estate. There she clashes with Julian Cavendish, a cold, poised billionaire heir, hiding a secret poetic soul. As Mira earns the bird's trust, sparks ignite between her and Julian, despite his controlling mother and the scandals threatening them both. But when a long-buried affair between Julian's father and a mysterious bird trainer surfaces, Mira uncovers a truth that could destroy everything they've built, in a house built on silence. Only love and a parrot's final whisper can set them free. Chapter 1. The summons. The email arrived on a rainy Tuesday morning, tucked between vet invoices and a spam ad for birdseed. Mira Solano almost deleted it without opening. The Cavendish name didn't mean much to her. Only a whisper of wealth and scandal she'd heard in passing from tabloids at supermarket checkouts. But as she read the contents and urgent requests to assess and rehabilitate a rare mute hyacinth macaw, her pulse quickened. It wasn't just the offer. It was where it came from. Cavendish Hall, glass and stone estate that stretched across the cliffs of Halcyon Bay, rumored to house the largest private aviary in the country. They were offering triple her usual fee and a guest wing to stay. In a cage of gold, but a cage nonetheless. 2 days later, suitcase in hand and hair tied back against the wind, Mira stood before the estate's gates, feeling utterly out of place in her thrifted jeans and worn boots. The mansion loomed ahead like a modern castle, its architecture all sharp angles and cold beauty. The Cavendish crested eagle with outstretched wings was etched in black marble near the entrance. She was ushered inside by a wordless butler and led through endless polished corridors until she reached a solarium that felt more like a cathedral. Tall glass windows arched over exotic trees and golden cages. There, in the corner, stood a sleek enclosure housing the silent macaw. Feathers dulled from isolation. "He doesn't speak," came a clipped, female voice. Mira turned. Celeste Cavendish entered like frost elegant, composed and radiating. Disdain, her diamond necklace sparkled like ice at her throat. "He's bonded with no one," Celeste continued. "He came into our possession under complicated circumstances. He refuses to mimic, and he bites anyone who gets too close. He come highly recommended. Fix him." Mira crouched near the cage, careful not to make sudden movements. The bird watched her with wary, intelligent eyes. He was beautiful, regal, invisibly miserable. "I don't fix birds," Mira said quietly. "I listen, and I wait." She heard the disapproval click behind Celeste's teeth, but the woman didn't argue. Instead, she turned on her heel, heels echoing like judgment on the marble floors. "He has no name," Celeste called over her shoulder. "We didn't bother," Mira whispered. "I'll call you Soul." The bird blinked, as if surprised. Just then, a presence filled the room, silent but electric. Mira stood and came face to face with Julian Cavendish. Tall, sharply dressed, and impossibly unreadable, he looked like a man carved out of expectation. Steel-gray eyes swept over her with mild curiosity and vague condescension. "You're the bird girl," he said. Mira straightened. "And you must be the man who doesn't believe in listening." A flicker of something amusement passed across his face before it vanished. "Let's hope you're more effective than the last one. She lasted 3 days." Mira smiled, slow and unshaken. "Then I'll aim for 4. Julian left without another word, the scent of expensive cologne trailing behind him. Mira returned her gaze to Soul. "Well," she whispered, brushing a finger along the edge of the cage, "guess it's you and me now." And somewhere deep in the solarium, a wind rustled through the leaves like a warning. Chapter 2. Ice and Ink. The second morning at Cavendish Hall began with silence. No birdsong, no greetings, just the hush of luxury pressing in from every marble corridor. Mira entered the solarium with a soft whistle on her lips and a handful of soaked walnuts in her palm. Soul didn't move. He sat motionless on his perch, watching her with wary eyes, the metallic band around his leg glinting beneath the morning light. "I know you're smarter than all of us," she murmured, easing into the chair across from him. "I just need you to believe I'm not here to hurt you." Sol tilted his head. She stayed there for hours, speaking gently, never reaching inside, never pushing. Patience was her language, and she was fluent. By late afternoon, Mira wandered the estate grounds, seeking the quiet that helped her think. The hallways were still unfamiliar, like a dream with too many locked doors. She turned a corner and paused before an open door that breathed warm lamplight and the scent of old paper. It was a library, but not just any library. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined the walls, and the center table was cluttered with papers, leather notebooks, and open volumes of classic poetry. She stepped in, drawn like a moth. Her fingers brushed the edge of a notebook, its pages filled with slanted handwriting. She didn't mean to read, but her eyes caught on a line. The bird sings, not for joy, but for memory. And the memory is always her. Mira's breath caught. The words were intimate, haunted, bleeding with emotion. She turned the page. Find what you were looking for. Julian's voice snapped her upright. Stood in the doorway, arms folded, eyes like cold metal. He was no longer wearing the perfectly tailored suit, just a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbows, collar undone. He looked infuriatingly human. I wasn't snooping, Mira said, closing the book. I got lost. Stepped into the room with the controlled grace of someone raised on discipline and etiquette, lost enough to read through private journals. I only read a line, she said. It was beautiful. That doesn't make it yours. Mira narrowed her eyes. Neither is the bird, but here we are. That stopped him. For a breath, something shifted in his expression, something fragile, but then it locked away again. You wouldn't understand, he muttered, grabbing the notebook from the desk and tucking it beneath his arm. Your world is simpler. No, Mr. Cavendish, she said, her voice low. My world is honest. She walked out before he could reply. Back in the solarium, Sol greeted her with a flutter of wings. Mira knelt beside his cage, letting her heartbeat settle. You know what I think? She whispered. Your owner's afraid to speak just like you are. Sol blinked, then let out a soft, low whistle. Not a word, not yet, but it was a start. Chapter 3. Gilded cages. Days passed, each one edged with tension and feather-light progress. Mira returned to the solarium every morning before sunrise, the scent of dew still clinging to the glass walls. She greeted Sol with soft whistles, offering treats, toys, and stories from the outside world. He began inching closer to the edge of his perch, blinking slower when she spoke. His trust was forming, delicate and tentative. She named the cages around them. The tall one by the fig tree was the tower. The smaller one near the orchid vines became the nest, but Sol's the grandest. With gilded corners and custom craftsmanship, she called the throne. Julian, though, remained distant. Saw him in the library, or pacing the second-floor balcony that overlooked the solarium. Phone pressed to his ear, his jaw set like stone. Other times she felt him watching through the glass, a silent observer in his own home. He never interfered. He never smiled until the afternoon he brought Sol a perch carved from reclaimed mahogany. Mira was tending to the bird when he entered, carrying it like a peace offering he didn't know how to give. He's chewing the brass bars again, Julian said, setting it down. Mira glanced up. That's because he's anxious. The cage is too sterile. Birds need texture, scent, rhythm life, noted. He muttered. She inspected the perch, surprised by its quality. Did you make this? Julian hesitated. Had it made? Based on your notes? Mira's brow lifted. You read my notes? I read everything in this house, he said, but his voice lacked its usual sharpness. Sol deserves better than a display case. Mira nodded slowly, not yet thanking him. Then maybe you do too. Julian looked at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. And then just for a second, his eyes softened, less winter, more dusk. Later, Mira walked through the east gardens for air. That's where she found Celeste, standing like a statue among the topiaries, sipping tea from porcelain to fragile. For real life. Eh? She didn't turn as Mira approached. He's watching you, Celeste said evenly. Mira's shoulders stiffened. I'm not here for him. I'm here for the bird. Celeste smiled without warmth. You'd be wise to keep it that way. You see, Miss Solano, we've had women like you before. They come with wide eyes and soft hands, thinking they understand pain and privilege. But this house doesn't bend for sentiment, devours it. Mira didn't flinch. Then maybe it's time someone taught the house how to heal. She turned and walked away, heart pounding. Back inside the solarium, Soul mimicked a sound for the first time. Not a word, but a breath. Mira's breath. A perfect echo. She looked up and saw Julian on the balcony again, watching not with coldness, but curiosity, maybe even wonder. And beneath the towering glass ceiling, 2 cages stood open, one gilded, one invisible. Chapter 4. The first spark of the storm arrived without warning. One moment, the sky above the estate was pale and calm. The next, it was bruised with thunderclouds and sharp gusts of wind. Mira was in the solarium when the first bolt of lightning lit the glass walls like a flashbulb. Soul flapped anxiously, wings rustling with unease. I know, boy, she whispered, placing a gentle hand near the cage without touching. It's just noise. You're safe. The housekeeper appeared moments later, umbrella in hand, worry etched. Across her face, roads flooded. The driver can't get through. You'll have to stay the night. Mira nodded, brushing damp curls from her forehead. She hadn't planned to return to her rented cottage anyway. She never left Soul alone. During storms, can I stay near him? The East Wing guest room has been prepared, the woman replied. Mr. Cavendish insisted. Of course he did. Night blanketed the mansion in eerie silence. A rain tapped against the windows like restless fingers. Mira wandered, restless herself, until her steps led her back to the solarium. Soul was sleeping, finally, peacefully. She didn't want to disturb him. Still, something kept her rooted in the center of the glass room. Hands wrapped around a mug of too strong tea. The sound of footsteps made her turn. Julian stood at the entrance. Tie on, shirt sleeves pushed up, the storm casting flickers of shadow across his face. You're still here? So are you. His eyes drifted to Soul, then to her. I couldn't sleep. She gave a small, tired smile. Let me guess, you prefer control. Storms don't listen. A corner of his mouth lifted almost a smile. Almost. Storms remind me that control is a myth, but I still try. Crossed the room and sat near her on the low bench, beside a potted fig tree. They didn't speak for a long while. The rain filled the silence between them. It should have been uncomfortable. It wasn't. I read your poetry, Mira said quietly. Well, a line. He didn't react at first. But then, I used to write more. Before. Before what? Julian stared into the dark solarium, before everything started mattering too much. Mira watched him, not the poised billionaire, but the tired man behind the performance. You write like someone who's been caged? Looked at her then, fully. Can you speak like someone who never has been? I have, she said, just not with money or glass. Mine were smaller, meaner, but I broke them. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You think I can? She didn't answer. She reached out and brushed a raindrop from his sleeve, her hand lingering. Only you can decide if the bars are worth the view. Their eyes met. The air shifted. His hand found hers. No words. Yes. Just heat and silence. And then his lips were inches from hers. For a heartbeat, the world was thunder and glass, and something dangerously close to longing. But Julian pulled back, his jaw clenched. This is a mistake. She stood, heart pounding. Maybe it's the first honest thing that's happened in this house. He didn't follow her, but neither of them slept that night. Chapter 5. A Mother's Warning. The morning after the storm. Sunlight streamed through the solarium as if nothing had happened, but Mira felt it in the air, a charge that hadn't dissipated. She moved through the aviary with practiced calm, feeding Soul bits of banana and whistling a soft tune. He was warming to her. She could see it in the way he leaned closer when she spoke, how his claws no longer clutched the perch with fear. Still, her mind wandered to Julian. She hadn't seen him since their almost kiss. Part of her was relieved. The other part, the one she tried to ignore, wondered what would have happened if he hadn't stopped. By mid-morning, Mira took a break in the East Garden, seeking fresh air among the manicured roses and stone fountains. But she wasn't alone for long. The click of heels on stone made her turn. Celeste Cavendish approached like a queen surveying a threat. "You seem quite at home," she said, voice smooth as silk and just as sharp. Mira straightened. "I was just getting some air." Celeste smiled, the kind of smile that never reached the eyes. "I'm sure it's a refreshing change from wherever it is you usually work." Mira didn't bite. "Birds don't care about marble floors." "Ah," Celeste said, brushing invisible dust from her cream blazer. "But people do, especially my son." "There it was the reason for this ambush. You're mistaken if you think I'm here for Julian," Mira replied, forcing calm into her voice. "I'm here for Sol." Celeste's expression didn't change. "Good, because whatever moment passed between you and my son last night, it ends there." Mira's stomach dropped. "You were spying?" "I was watching my house," Celeste said simply. "I have eyes everywhere, including on my son. And I won't allow some soft-hearted animal empath to unravel everything I've built." "I'm not trying to," Mira said.
"How the Julians?"
"A grown man. He doesn't need protecting." Celeste's eyes darkened. "You have no idea what Julian needs. This world, our world, isn't made for women like you. It will chew you up and spit you out, and you'll take him down with you. I've seen it happen before." There was something almost trembling beneath her voice. Bitterness. Or fear. Celeste leaned in slightly. "Let me offer you a warning dressed as advice. Finish your work. Take your generous payment and leave this place with dignity intact. Because once my son is named CEO, the press, the board, the entire city will turn their gaze on him. On you. Do you want to be the curiosity they dissect?" Mira said nothing. She didn't trust her voice not to crack. Celeste gave a satisfied smile. "I thought not." She turned and walked away, heels slicing the silence like knives. Later that evening, Mira found herself wandering the corridor near the old servants' wing, where the walls were lined with forgotten oil paintings and dusty antiques. She wasn't sure what drew her there until she passed a half-open door and heard a voice inside. "Celeste, I don't care what the file says," she was saying, low and furious. "This can't surface again. Bury it, just like we did before." Mira froze, heart pounding. Another voice replied, lower male, unfamiliar. "And if someone else finds out, they won't," Celeste hissed. "I made sure of it 20 years ago." Mira backed away, breath tight in her chest. What had happened 20 years ago, and what did it have to do with her or Julian? Back in the solarium, Sol watched her with unblinking eyes, as if he knew more than he let on, and for the first time since arriving at Cavendish Hall, Mira felt afraid. Chapter 6. Broken Wings. The day began like any other quiet, measured, full of delicate rituals. Mira arrived in the solarium with a small bowl of mango slivers and murmured greetings for Sol. He chirped once, almost playfully, then turned his back in his usual moody fashion. She grinned. Progress came in inches, not miles, but then something changed. A sudden crack of glass from the upper balcony startled them both. Mira looked up just in time to see a cleaner drop a squeegee against the glass roof. The sound wasn't loud, but for Sol, it was enough. He panicked, his wings flapping furiously against the cage bars. His talons caught on the perch and slipped. There was a sickening thud, a screech of pain, and then silence. "No, no, no, Sol," Mira shouted, rushing to the cage. She opened it without hesitation. Protocol, be damned, and carefully cradled the trembling bird in her arms. His wing hung at an awkward angle, feathers ruffled and beak slightly open in pain. She laid him down on a towel and worked quickly, her voice steady despite the fear clawing inside her. "Easy, sweetheart. I've got you." Footsteps thundered behind her. "What happened?" Julian's voice rang out, urgent. Mira didn't look up. Glass noise spooked him. He panicked and fell. "His wing might be dislocated. I'll call the vet." "No time," she said firmly. "I've treated dozens of birds. I just need a quiet room and some space." Julian didn't argue. Instead, He knelt beside her and helped lift Sol onto a transport cushion, his movements surprisingly gentle. "Use my father's study. It has soft light and warmth." She met his eyes, surprised. "Thank you." In the study, surrounded by dark mahogany and silent portraits, Mira worked carefully. Julian stayed nearby, silent and still as a statue. For a man used to controlling empires, he looked entirely helpless watching her save one small life. When Sol was sedated and his wing set into place, Mira sat back, wiping her brow. "He'll recover, with rest, space, and a little luck." Julian exhaled, something deep and fragile loosening inside him. "I don't think I've ever cared about a bird before." Mira gave him a tired smile. "Then Sol's already done half his job." They sat in quiet for a moment, the tension in the room softening. Mira looked around the study rich with memories, yet curiously untouched by time. "Was this your father's favorite room?" Julian's gaze drifted to a photograph on the mantel, a younger man with eyes just like his, arms crossed beside a falcon perched on his glove. He used to spend hours here. He had this thing with birds-trained falcons, owls, even a toucan once. Said he liked the ones that weren't meant to be caged. Mira's heart caught. Sounds like someone I'd get along with. Julian's jaw tightened. He wasn't perfect. He loved the wrong people, trusted the wrong ones. In the end, it cost him everything. Mira looked at him closely. "Do you mean your mother?" Julian didn't answer right away. His voice dropped to something raw. "There was a woman. Before my mother took over the family business, he was going to leave. Said love shouldn't feel like a contract." "And did he leave?" "No." A bitter smile. "He died instead." Mira swallowed hard. "I'm sorry." Julian's eyes flicked to hers, vulnerable for just a beat. "Don't be. He made his choice, and now I make mine." They sat in silence, Sol asleep between. Chapter 7. The Aviary Waltz. The garden was a dream painted in gold. Twinkling lights draped from tree branches like falling stars. String quartets played beneath the pergola, their music floating over manicured hedges and sculpted fountains. Cavendish Hall's annual gala was in full bloom, spectacle of power and money. Masks and whispers. Mira stood at the edge of the marble terrace in a borrowed gown. Midnight blue silk hugged her curves, her hair swept up, a single feather tucked behind her ear like a quiet rebellion. She felt like an imposter. Elegant guests clinked champagne glasses and threw polite, curious glances her way. She didn't belong here, not among people who measured worth in inheritance and last names. She was scanning the crowd for an exit when she heard him. "You clean up well, bird girl?" Julian stood before her in a perfectly tailored black suit, his tie loose. His hair slightly tousled as though he'd run his fingers through it one too many times. There was something in his eyes, something smoldering beneath the cool surface. "And you don't look like you're pretending to hate this for once," she replied, lips curving. He offered his arm. "Dance with me." It wasn't a question. Mira hesitated, but the music shifted into a soft waltz, and the murmurs around her grew louder. She saw Celeste watching from across the lawn, a brittle smile plastered on her face. "Julian, what are you doing?" Mira whispered, as he led her to the center of the terrace. "Ending a rumor," he said smoothly, hand settling at her waist. "Or starting a better one." They began to dance. At first, Mira moved stiffly, her heart racing for all the wrong reasons. "What?" But then Julian leaned in, his voice low and rich against her ear. "Don't look at them. Look at me." "What?" She did. Suddenly, the world faded, the murmurs, the clinking glasses, the disapproving stares. All that remained was the heat of his hand against hers, the rhythm of his steps guiding her, and the way he looked at her like she was the only real thing in a world full of artifice. "You're playing a dangerous game," she said. "I've played safe my whole life," he replied. "It hasn't made me happy." They moved in perfect time, caught in something too electric to be denied. When the music ended, Julian didn't let go right away. His hand lingered on her back, and then he pulled her into the shadows behind the terrace, into the hush of the rose garden. "I shouldn't," he breathed. "Then don't," she whispered, but his mouth was already crashing against hers. The kiss was fierce and aching, the kind that makes you forget where you are. Mira curled into him, her fingers tangled. In his collar? The world narrowed to his lips, his breath.
Ow.
The hand cupping her jaw with more tenderness than she thought him capable of. When they finally broke apart, he pressed his forehead to hers. "I've never felt like this," he murmured. "I have," she said softly. "Once, and it ruined me." Julian looked at her then, really looked. "I won't ruin you," he promised, but somewhere deep inside, Mira felt the echo of a warning. Some cages weren't made of gold. Some were made of promises. Chapter 8. The Gold. Diggerlight, morning light, was harsh. It slanted through the solarium windows. It's too bright, too exposing, as if the whole house had woken up to something it wasn't ready to admit. Mira stood at Saul's enclosure, brushing stray feathers from the freshly cleaned perch. But her fingers trembled. Last night it happened. Julian's kiss still haunted her lips, fierce, real, terrifying. She hadn't imagined it, but she didn't know what it meant. Not yet. She didn't have to wait long for the answer. By mid-morning, the headlines hit. Her phone buzzed endlessly. Billionaire heir romances bird trainer. Scandal at Cavendish gala. Julian and the feather girl. Grainy photos accompanied the gossip, her in Julian's arms, their kiss partially obscured by roses, the flash of his hand on her waist. Mira stared at the screen, throat tight. Then came the whispering, the glances, the sudden coldness from the staff who had once smiled at her. Unbothered, as if she'd just orchestrated a successful business deal. "Did you enjoy your dance, Miss Solano?" Celeste asked without looking up. "You leaked the photos?" Mira said. Celeste finally met her gaze. "I warned you. You chose not to listen." "I kissed him," Mira said, voice low. "Is that really such a threat?" Celeste stood, smoothing her blouse. "You don't understand how this world works. Men like Julian don't fall in love. They inherit alliances. You're a distraction, an indulgence. But if you push any further, you become a liability." "You're wrong," Mira said. "He's not like you." Celeste's eyes flashed. "He's exactly like me, just hasn't accepted it yet." Mira turned and walked away, fury twisting inside her. But the damage had already begun. That afternoon, she found Julian in the west corridor, phone pressed. To his ear, his voice clipped and businesslike. "I said it's nothing. The board will cool off. They always do." A pause. "No, I haven't spoken to her." When he hung up, Mira was already standing behind him. He turned, startled. "Mira, you didn't deny it?" she said, voice flat. "Shh, you didn't? Defend me." Julian ran a hand through his hair. "If I go to war with my mother over a kiss, she'll use it against both of us. She'll spin it into a vendetta. She already has the press on a leash." Mira's heart cracked. "So what am I to you? A secret? A mistake?" he said, stepping closer. "You're the only thing that feels real in this place, but I have to be smart." "Smart," she echoed, "or spineless." He flinched, like she'd struck him. Mira stepped back. "I should have known. I was never going to be good enough for your world." Julian's face tightened, pain flickering in his eyes. "That's not what I've—" But she was already walking away. She returned to the solarium and sat beside Saul's cage, feeling smaller than she ever had. The bird pressed against the bars gently, as if offering comfort. She whispered, "I think I flew too close to something that wasn't ever meant to catch me." Outside, the whispers grew louder. Chapter 9. The Offer. Mira packed in silence. Her clothes went into the suitcase one by one, folded neat, as if order could keep heartbreak from spilling out. The room felt too big, too cold, too borrowed. Cavendish Hall, once a place of intrigue and beauty, had become a gilded cage that tightened around her chest. The headlines hadn't faded. If anything, they'd multiplied. Julian had made no statement, no denial, no defense, and neither had she. But then came the email. Subject line: Offer of position. Santuario das Brazil. It was from a conservation sanctuary she'd once dreamed of, working at a place where parrots flew free, where the sky wasn't just seen through glass. They wanted her immediately. Full relocation housing provided. A dream. An escape. She sat at the edge of the bed and stared at the screen, her finger hovering over accept. That's when a soft knock came at her door. Julian stepped in without. Waiting, he looked tired, no tie, sleeves rolled, shadows beneath his eyes. Guilt written in every inch of his posture, I heard, he said. About the offer. Mira didn't look at him. I'm leaving, he hesitated. Is it because of the press? She let out a bitter laugh. No, it's because of you. Julian stepped closer. Mira, you didn't choose me, she said, not when it counted. You let your silence speak for you. I thought I was protecting you. No, you were protecting yourself. The air between them was thick with unsaid things. She wanted him to fight. To reach for her. To say what he hadn't when it mattered, but he only asked, when do you go? In 2 days, Julian's jaw tightened. He nodded. Congratulations. Mira blinked, stunned by how much it hurt to hear that from him. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for, he said softly. She stood, suddenly needing to move. I was never looking for anything, Julian. I just wanted to be seen. Really seen. I see you, he said, stepping forward. But it was too late. She walked past him, her suitcase rolling behind her like a full stop at the end of a story. That night, alone in the solarium, she sat with Sol one last time. His wing was healing. He no longer flinched when she touched the cage. A single whistle escaped his beak soft, questioning. I know, boy, she whispered, pressing her forehead to the bars. But not all birds get to stay where they feel safe. She stood and turned off the light, and behind her in the darkness, the bird chirped again. Something that almost sounded like don't go. Chapter 10. The whisper. Mira couldn't sleep. The night before her departure hung like fog around her shoulders. Her suitcase sat by the door, ready. Her papers were in order. And yet something tugged at her, gentle but insistent, like a song. She couldn't quite hear. She found herself in the solarium just past midnight, barefoot, wrapped in a knit shawl. Sol was awake, shifting restlessly on his perch. His wing had healed well. He moved with more confidence now. Mira stepped closer, her hand resting on the cage. Last night in this strange glass palace, she murmured. And still, I feel like something's unfinished. Sol tilted his head. Then he spoke. Mira froze. It wasn't clear. Not yet, a fragmented phrase, cracked with effort and age like an old recording. But there was no mistaking it. Sol had finally spoken. She was here before. She was here before. Heart slammed into her ribs. What did you say? She whispered. Sol blinked, repeating it again. Slower, more deliberate. She was here before? Mira stepped back, blood roaring in her ears. The phrase wasn't random. It wasn't mimicry. It was memory. She pulled out her phone and hit record, capturing every syllable. The next morning she played the audio. For the housekeeper, Mrs. Hollings, an older woman who had worked at Cavendish Hall for decades and had always treated Mira with subtle, quiet kindness. But the moment the recording played, Mrs. Hollings went pale. Where did you who said that? She demanded, voice shaking. The parrot, Mira said slowly. Sol. Mrs. Hollings backed away, visibly shaken. You need to stop asking questions, Miss Solano. That bird? You shouldn't remember? Remember what? Mrs. Hollings looked over her shoulder, as if afraid someone might hear. There was another trainer, she said in a whisper. Years ago, a woman who looked a bit like you, same eyes. Same way with the birds. She didn't stay long. Why? Because she got too close. Because Celeste didn't like competition. Mira's pulse quickened. What was her name? I don't know. I was never told. The woman hesitated. But she used to bring her own birds. One of them looked just like Sol. Mira's thoughts spiraled. Her mother had worked with birds. Had left England in a hurry. She'd never spoken much about the time before Mira was born. Never named names. What happened to her? Mrs. Hollings stepped back. She disappeared. Mira clutched the phone tighter. Do you think she could have been involved with Julian's father? The housekeeper's face twisted with fear. "Don't go down that path, Mira. Don't repeat her mistake." But it was already too late. The bird had spoken. The past was no longer buried. It was waiting beneath feathers, behind silence, inside the glass walls of Cavendish Hall, and Mira was the key to unlocking it. Chapter 11. Letters in the attic. The attic of Cavendish Hall was not on any official map of the estate. It wasn't part of the guided tours Celeste occasionally allowed the press to fawn over. It wasn't even listed in the blueprints Mira had glimpsed once, tucked into a dusty folder in the library. But Mrs. Hollings, hands trembling, had slipped her a key. "If you're going to look for the truth," she'd said, "look where no one goes anymore." That night, Mira waited until the house had gone still, until even the wind outside seemed to hold its breath. She crept through the east wing, climbed the servants' staircase, and unlocked the creaking wooden door at the end of the hall. The attic smelled of mothballs and old secrets. Light poured in through a narrow window, cutting across trunks, oil paintings, and boxes of forgotten Cavendish history. Mira moved slowly, brushing cobwebs aside. Guided by instinct more than logic, she found it beneath a sheet. Tucked inside a weathered birdcage, a leather box cracked with age, sealed with a tarnished clasp. Inside, she discovered letters, dozens of them, folded carefully and bound with faded ribbon. Each one began the same. "My dearest Isadora." Mira read them with shaking hands. The handwriting was unmistakably Julian's father, elegant, passionate, aching with the sort of longing that could never exist in the daylight. He wrote of love, of poetry, of parrot calls at dawn, of stolen hours in the solarium, of a dream. To run away with a woman he could never introduce to the board or his wife. One line burned into her memory. "Your voice teaches me what freedom sounds like. Your hands remind me I am more than a name." Tears welled in Mira's eyes. At the bottom of the stack, one final letter sat unopened, its envelope worn, the seal broken long ago. "She's with child," it read. "Celeste found out. She threatened to ruin her. I've arranged for her to leave the country quietly, but I'll never stop loving her. If the child ever returns here, I'll know. Somehow I'll know." Mira's breath caught. She wasn't reading about a stranger anymore. She was reading about her mother. "I saw her." Mira staggered back, the air thinning around her. The woman who vanished. The one who'd never spoken of her time in England. The one who hummed lullabies that sounded like birdsong. Mira remembered those melodies now, the same ones Soul mimicked when he thought no one was listening. It all fit. And suddenly, the question that had haunted her since she stepped foot in Cavendish Hall turned sharp and cold. Who was she to Julian? She ran down the attic stairs, the letters clutched to her chest, a thousand thoughts screaming through her head. If Julian's father had loved her mother, if Mira was that child, then she and Julian know, she whispered aloud, stumbling into the shadows of the hallway. The truth had wings, but some truths weren't meant to fly. Chapter 12. The break. The hallway outside. Julian's private study felt like the edge of a cliff. Mira stood there, the bundle of letters pressed tight against her chest, her heart a cacophony of grief, rage, and panic. She had rehearsed what she would say, but the words didn't feel real, not anymore. Nothing did. She knocked once. Julian opened the door. Immediately, as if he'd been waiting. "Mira," he said, startled by her expression. "What?" "Tell me the truth," she interrupted, stepping into the room and placing the letters on his desk. "Did you know?" Julian stared down at the aged pages. He lifted the top one, then another, his brow furrowed in confusion. Then recognition, then something worse, dread. "I found them in the attic," she said, her voice cracking. "Letters from your father? To my mother." Silence fell like a blade. Julian sat slowly, the color draining from his face. "Isadora?" Mira nodded. She worked here, with the birds. She was sent away before I was born. Celeste threatened. Her? I never knew why. Until now. Julian looked up, searching her eyes. What are you saying? I'm saying I might be your sister, she whispered, the words tasting like ash. Or half-sister? I don't know, Julian. He stood abruptly, backing away like the floor had cracked open beneath him. No, that doesn't make sense. Didn't want it to, she cried. But it does. Your father wrote that she was pregnant when she left, and I've never known who mine was. Julian shook his head, stunned. This can't be real. Mira folded her arms around herself. I kissed you. I loved you. And now, I don't even know what we are. I need to talk to my mother, he said, already moving. Toward the door. No, Mira said, stepping in his path. I came here for answers, and I got more pain instead. You had a chance to stand up for me once, and you stayed silent. Now I need you to fight. I will, Julian said, his voice hoarse. I will. But I need time. I don't have time, Mira said quietly. I'm leaving tomorrow. Julian's face collapsed. You still plan to go? I have to, she said. I can't stay in this house and keep pretending. Not when everything here lies to me. He looked at her like he was drowning. Mira, please, don't go like this. She stepped forward, kissed him softly once, like goodbye. You were the only part of this place that ever felt real, she whispered. But even that might have been a mistake. Then she turned and walked away. Julian didn't follow. Back in her room, Mira closed her suitcase. The house was silent, except for the flutter of feathers in the solarium and the echo of one word. From Saul's cage, barely a whisper now. Stay. But Mira was already gone. Chapter 13. The confession, the Cavendish estate was unusually still the next morning, so holding its breath. Julian didn't sleep. He couldn't. Mira's words haunted every corner of his mind, every echo of the halls. The possibility that she was his sister, his blood had struck him like a lightning bolt to the soul. He had kissed her, fallen for her, and now he might have destroyed them both. He stormed into the sitting room where Celeste was reading a newspaper, a delicate pastry untouched on her plate. I need the truth, he said. His voice wasn't loud, but it cut like a blade. Celeste folded her paper with elegant precision. Julian, honestly, this tone, did father have an affair with a bird trainer named Isadora? The room went still. I found the letters. He continued, I read them, and Mira might be his daughter. Celeste set down her teacup, her mask slipping just for a moment. That woman was a threat to our family, to your future. She manipulated your father, made him believe in a fantasy. Julian stepped closer. Was Mira his child? Celeste stood slowly. I don't know, that's not good enough. I had her mother removed before it got to that point. Celeste said sharply. She was 3 months pregnant. Your father was talking about leaving me, destroying the Cavendish name for some little romance in the aviary. I did what I had to do. You buried the truth, Julian said, seething. You lied. For decades. Celeste's eyes flashed. I protected you. Do you think the world would have welcomed a bastard child born in a scandal? That the board would have handed you the reins of Cavendish Enterprises if there was a rumor of another heir? Everything I did, every silence, every threat tit, was for you. Julian laughed bitterly. No, mother. It was for you. It's for your control, your image. She is a problem, Julian. You have to cut her loose. No, he said, voice low and deadly calm. I already lost her once. Take her from me again. Celeste's mask cracked, revealing something raw beneath the knowledge that she had gone too far this time. Later that evening, Julian sat alone in his father's study. He reopened the letters, rereading every line, looking for absolution, for truth. One letter caught his eye, written on different paper, unsigned. She said she couldn't bear to bring a child into your world. She didn't want our daughter. Raised in a glass house, she asked me to forget her, but I never could. His breath caught. Daughter, the word echoed like thunder. Mira wasn't his sister. She was never his sister. She was the daughter of a man who wanted to choose love, and a woman who walked away to protect it. And Julian, he had stood at the edge of that same choice, and failed. Until now, he rose to his feet with purpose. Every step firm, there was still time, but only if he could reach her, before she disappeared from his life forever. Chapter 14. Soul. Speaks. The press conference had been designed to dazzle. Cavendish Enterprises was unveiling plans for a groundbreaking eco-resort on protected land just outside Halcyon Bay. Project Celeste had meticulously planned to restore the Cavendish image after the scandal with Mira. Journalists filled the hall. Cameras flashed, and the scent of expensive orchids floated through the air. Julian stood behind the podium in a dark suit, looking every bit the heir apparent. But his face was drawn, his jaw clenched. In front of him sat rows of board members, reporters, investors, all waiting for the perfect soundbite. The signature Cavendish charm. Celeste sat in the front row, a proud smile frozen on her face. Julian adjusted the microphone. "Before I begin, I want to share something personal." There was a murmur in the crowd. He glanced to the side. Perched in a small, open enclosure beside the stage was Soul, feathers gleaming, eyes sharp. It was an odd addition to the conference at Julian's insistence. "She's not here today," Julian continued. "But Mira Solano changed the way I see the world. She changed me." Celeste's expression tightened. "My father left behind many legacies, buildings, holdings, power, but he also left behind secrets, ones that deserve light, not silence." A ripple went through the room. Camera zoomed in. Julian looked down. "I found letters, love letters, between my father and a woman named Isadora. She was sent away to protect the Cavendish name. Was pregnant when she left." Celeste rose from her chair. "Julian, that's enough." But then it happened. Soul took flight in a flurry of iridescent blue. The bird left his perch and soared above the stunned audience, wings slicing the air. Gasps echoed as he glided to Julian's shoulder, calm, proud, weightless, and then, for the first time in front of strangers, Soul spoke. His voice was cracked, but clear. A mimic of a man long gone. "Don't make my mistake, son." Silence was absolute. Julian closed his eyes for a beat, then turned back to the microphone. "My name is Julian Cavendish. I no longer accept the legacy of silence. I renounce my claim to the Cavendish Empire until it learns to stand on love, not fear." Chaos erupted in the room. Cameras flashed. Voices shouted questions. Celeste stood frozen, her empire unraveling. In the face of a single sentence, and a bird that remembered everything, Julian turned and walked. Offstage, Soul still clung to his shoulder as he exited through the glass doors of the conference hall into the sunlight. Reporters chased after him, but he said nothing. He was already dialing. "Mira," he breathed when she answered. "Don't board the plane." Her silence pierced him. "I know the truth now," he said. "You're not my sister. You never were. You're Isadora's daughter, and I'm not losing you." He waited. Then her voice came through, trembling. "Where are you?" "Coming to you," he said. "This time, I choose you. And for the first time in years." The Cavendish name wasn't the weight around his neck. It was the wind beneath his wings. Chapter 15. The Sky. Between us, the skies above Brazil were impossibly wide. Mira stood at the edge of the sanctuary's overlook, watching a flock of macaws rise into the air with wild, unrestrained joy. Below, the forest stretched in every direction, a living sea of green. Here there were no marble floors, no gilded cages, just freedom. And for the first time in weeks, Mira could breathe. She hadn't expected him to come, not really. But when she turned and saw Julian stepping out of the sanctuary's battered old Jeep, his suit jacket traded for a linen shirt, sleeves rolled, hair tousled by travel and humidity, her heart stuttered. He looked like he belonged. Not to the world he came from, but to her. They stood a few paces apart, the heat thick between them. "You found me," she said. "I never stopped looking." She crossed her arms, trying to hold herself together. "Why now?" He stepped closer. "Because I had to let go of everything that wasn't real. The only thing that ever felt true was you." "You renounced the company," she said quietly. "I did." "I walked away from the legacy," he replied. "My mother, she tried to define me by duty. But you taught me to want more." Mira blinked fast, fighting tears. You're really here, he nodded. Not to visit, not to run, to stay. You'll have me. She searched his face for hesitation. It was none. I thought I had to leave to escape the cage, she whispered. Maybe it wasn't the house. Maybe it was what I believed I deserved. Julian reached for her hand. Then let's build something better. Together. A life where no one owns us. A single, joyful whistle echoed above them. Soul circled once in the air before gliding down to Mira's shoulder, his feathers gleaming, his eyes bright. He let out a string of chirps, and then he sang. It was a melody Mira's mother used to hum, song passed down through memory, through love. A lullaby that had no words, only warmth. Julian smiled. He remembers her. Mira looked at Soul, then at Julian, and finally, the sky. They kissed slowly, completely as the birds rose around them. A burst of color and wind. Later that month, the Cavendish name quietly dissolved from headlines. In its place, a new story emerged. A sanctuary in Brazil founded by a parrot whisperer and a reformed billionaire. No scandal. No inheritance. Just flight, feathers, and freedom. And when visitors asked about the talking bird who sang love songs, Mira would smile and say he only speaks when it's real. And with Julian beside her, it always was.